Ladies and gentlemen, today I want to speak about a story that at first sounds like a piece of dramatic fiction, but in truth reflects something deeper about human judgment, discipline, and the danger of assumptions. The story is often summarized with a striking line: a Marine hit her in a saloon, not knowing she was an undercover special forces soldier. While the words themselves sound sensational, the real value of this story is not in shock, but in the lesson it offers to all of us. Imagine a crowded saloon, noisy with conversation and laughter, a place where people go to relax, to forget the weight of the day. In this environment, appearances can be deceiving. A person sitting quietly in the corner might look ordinary, unremarkable, even vulnerable. Another person, wearing confidence like armor, might believe they understand the situation completely. This is where the problem begins, when confidence turns into arrogance, and assumptions replace awareness. The Marine in this story represents discipline, strength, and training. Marines are taught to be resilient, decisive, and capable under pressure. But they are also taught something even more important: control. Strength without control is not professionalism, it is recklessness. In the saloon, however, that control slipped. Perhaps words were exchanged. Perhaps pride was challenged. Whatever the trigger, the Marine acted on an assumption that the person in front of him was weaker, insignificant, someone who could not respond. What he did not know was that the woman he struck was an undercover special forces soldier. She was trained at a level few ever reach. Her skills were not visible in her clothing or her posture. They were hidden by design. Undercover work depends on blending in, on appearing ordinary. This contrast between appearance and reality is the heart of the story. It reminds us how often we judge people by what we see, not by who they are. Now, this is not a story meant to glorify confrontation. It is not about who would win in a fight. In fact, the most important moment in this story is not the strike itself, but the realization that follows. When the truth comes out, when the Marine learns who she really is, the weight of his mistake becomes clear. It is not just embarrassment. It is the understanding that he failed to live up to the values he was trained to uphold. This moment forces us to ask ourselves difficult questions. How often do we underestimate others? How often do we assume power belongs to the loudest voice, the strongest posture, or the most familiar uniform? And how often do we let emotion override judgment? The saloon becomes a symbol of everyday life, where stress, ego, and misunderstanding collide. The undercover soldier, on the other hand, represents restraint and professionalism. Despite having the ability to respond with overwhelming force, her role requires discipline of a different kind. True strength is not proven by how quickly you strike back, but by knowing when not to. In many versions of this story, she does not immediately retaliate. She waits, she assesses, she follows protocol. This restraint highlights a powerful truth: real power is quiet. There is also a broader lesson here about respect. Respect is not something we give only to those we fear or admire. It is something we owe to everyone by default. When we fail to respect others, we risk more than conflict, we risk revealing our own weaknesses. The Marine's mistake was not just physical, it was moral. He allowed a moment of disrespect to define his actions. For young people especially, this story carries an important warning. Society often celebrates dominance and toughness, but rarely talks enough about accountability. Every action has consequences, and ignorance is not an excuse. Not knowing who someone is does not justify treating them poorly. In fact, it makes respect even more necessary, because we never truly know the battles others have fought or the strength they carry. This story also reminds us that titles and roles do not define worth. A Marine and a Special Forces soldier both serve, both sacrifice, both carry responsibility. Yet in that saloon, those shared values were forgotten. When we forget our shared humanity, we reduce people to stereotypes, and that is when mistakes happen. In the end, the real impact of this story is not humiliation or revenge, but reflection. It challenges us to think before we act, to question our assumptions, and to practice humility. Whether we wear a uniform or not, whether we are in a saloon or a classroom, the principle remains the same: strength must be guided by respect, and power must be balanced with restraint. So when you hear a dramatic title like this, don't stop at the surface. Look deeper. See it as a reminder that the world is full of hidden stories, hidden strengths, and hidden responsibilities. Treat others with dignity, not because you know who they are, but because you don't. And remember that the greatest mark of character is not how strong you appear, but how wisely you choose to act when no one expects it.